Alright, so today we're going to be doing a roast review choice board for the first half of Unit 7. So let's talk about a couple of things. So I'll first be imperialism. So my name's Imperialism, and I changed America forever, pretty much. So before me, the United States followed a policy of isolationism, but after me, we got an overseas empire, which led to economic benefits and also naval benefits. We could have more bases. I was mainly created during the Spanish American War, and I was created partially by yellow journalism, which led to the American public turning against um, the populace. So, Spanish American War was also pretty important. Um, so, Spanish American was pretty important, and there's events uh, that went on in the Spanish American War, like Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders, and there's War Hawks, again, like Teddy Roosevelt, who really wanted this war. And Teddy Roosevelt was obviously very conservative. He wanted to conserve like our natural resources, but he was also pro-expansion. He believed it was America's right to expand. And some people assert that America's belief in expansion here was also a form of like um, it's also a form of like social Darwinism because we thought we were stronger and we needed to civilize these other places. And you can point to stuff like the white man's burden when analyzing these type of texts. So moving on, uh, who should I be? I mean, I could be like, should I be? I guess I can be I guess I can be the, I don't want to be the Spanish American War because that's like kind of obvious. So I guess I'll be something like something surprising. I'll be the Philippine American War. I'm really forgotten about because people only talk about the Spanish American War, but I'm the Philippine American War. Philippine American War is important because it's sort of the awkward aftermath because the Filipinos helped us a little bit trying to when we were defeating Spain, and they thought that they were expected going to get some independence, but unfortunately, the U.S. annexed the Philippines. And what happened was called guerrilla warfare, where we used surprise tactics, where a smaller enemy, smaller force can fight a bigger enemy. This is similar to the tactics used in like Maoist China when the China's rebel, the communists were fighting um, the non-communists, capitalists in China. They used these guerrilla warfare type tactics, and it sort of highlighted the contradiction that American belief in independence and autonomy, whereas we were literally taking over other places and forcing them to come to our will, basically. Um, so the U.S. kind of acted like an imperial power, and in the end, they unfortunately did not get independence yet. So let's move on to thing. I'll be the hello. I'm the progressive era. So this is the third one. I'm the progressive era. So progressive era was very interesting because before this, it was a very free market type system. You know, there was like no regulation, industry runs the world. We shouldn't be regulating these types of things. But eventually, with the Gilded Age, what happened was that political corruption occurred. And obviously, this led to unsafe working conditions and the rise of stuff like Tammany Hall, which was a political machine, corporate monopolies, poverty, and people want to change, especially the people in the middle class, which was growing at this time period. So people like Theodore Roosevelt, William Howard Taft, Woodrow Wilson, even though Woodrow Wilson wasn't a Democrat, he was a Republican, I believe. He also was one to join in on this Republican. So this shows that progressivism was like a bipartisan movement. And obviously, Theodore Roosevelt, you could talk about the trust busting he did, which actually is funny enough. Taft wasn't known for trust busting, but he actually did do more trust busting than Theodore Roosevelt. And also conservation. They would want the environment to be just completely like not taken care of. Square deal, which was the three C's: conservation, consumer, and corporate regulation. Uh, couple of amendments that happened. The income tax amendment, which basically said that if you make more money, each marginal dollar you make will be taxed a different amount. The direct election of senators, which led to decrease the power of thing, and they got to the point where it's Australian ballots where you don't have to say who you're voting for verbally. Prohibition obviously happened in women's suffrage. Prohibition and was obviously not very good. It was a kind of a failure in the sense that it didn't succeed to do what it meant to do, which did succeed in keeping people from drinking. It led to a lot of bad things. And round five, I'm not sure if this is actually included in the first half. I think we just got to it, but I'm going to include it anyway because I really want to get this across. I'm going to beat World War One. World War One was initially a thing where the U.S. initially neutral, and it was obviously caused by Maine, militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. So this caused these tiny conflict to become this big conflict, but doesn't mean that these nations were opposed to conflict in the first place. Ger- Empires like Germany, as it was previously like unified from, it was previously Prussia, and Prussia unified all these different states from Germany under the famous Otto von Bismarck. Um, but what happened was that the U.S. was initially neutral, but then first of all they had economic ties to the Allies, who were sort of losing the war. German submarines were attacking the ships of the Americans, and stuff like the Zimmerman telegram, where the Germans were like telling Mexico, "You guys should invade America to keep them tied up." So we entered in 1917. We cooked them. We destroyed them. We helped tip the balance. War ended in 1918. What's important about the Treaty of Versailles is clothing. Article 231, obviously the war guilt clause, is very, very important because this meant that this sort of was one of the main clauses that led to Hitler's rise of power, actually, because he used this stab in the back theory that would become very popular to sort of twist the populace to agree with his ideas. Also, the League of Nations was created. It was actually, people like to dismiss the League of Nations completely. It wasn't as inefficient as we like make it sound. It was very efficient in medicine. It got rid of a lot of medicinal diseases, especially in the Americas. It was effective in small scale disputes such as the Island Island dispute, but eventually failure in disputes such as the dispute in Vilna and other disputes like they had the dispute where I don't forgot exactly what the name is, but it's like Mussolini was invading Italy, the from Italy, who's invading somewhere north of Italy. I think it was Macedonia, and they failed to stop it. The League of Nations was eventually shown to be sort of powerless because it didn't have a standing army, first of all, and so it was very inefficient. Something else that's very interesting was that the League of Nations, specifically the Treaty of Versailles, also had the reparations clause, which is also one of the reasons that Germany was able to Hitler was able to rise to power because there was so much economic suffering that he promised to alleviate this suffering. Um, yeah, also groups like the communists were also gaining power. The Spartacists, especially with the famous Spartacist Revolution, which happened in 1907. No, not 1970. I think 1921. Spartacist rebelled. They got crushed by the Freikorps. Yes, it's very interesting. But anyway, so obviously the World War One expanded federal power, led to Red Scare, and there was also some interesting political results, like Schenck versus the United States, where they basically stated that it is legal for the United States to restrict free speech if they think it's an imminent danger, which they classified people saying I don't want to join the draft and protesting the draft as a imminent danger, similar to someone shouting fire in a crowded wheelhouse. This case, actually, rather interestingly, was actually partially overturned by Brandenburg versus Ohio. So that's very important to know. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting. But yeah, that's it for this podcast. Thank you guys.